Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surah Ibraheem, chapter 14, verses 1 to 6 will be covered in today's presentation. These are the references, and this is our contact. First verse, bring humanity out into light from darknesses. Alif Lam Ra Kitabun Anzalnahu Alayka Litukhrijan Nasa Minal Zulumati Ila Nure Bi-Izni Rabbihim Ila Siratil Azizil Hamid. It is the proclamation of Allah, all-knowing and Rahim, that we have sent this code of laws to you so that you bring mankind from darknesses, that is Zulmat, into light, that is Nur, by this. And according to the law of their Rabb, put them on the path proposed by that Allah who is possessor of power and balance. Now over here, first I will go through the root zulm, which is used in zulmat and which is translated as darknesses. Zulm, the fundamental meaning is to interfere in the ownership of another person. That is somebody else's domain, we interfere in that, whether physically or indirectly. Exceeding the limit, some limit is exceeded, which is defined. It also means reduce something. It also means to not leave something at the particular place where it is meant to be, whether by decreasing or increasing it, or by not moving it away at the correct time and from its original place. So both physical and non-physical aspects are covered in this root. Ibn Faris has stated that it means darkness, displacing something by exceeding the limit. Some applications, snatching something away from someone by force, those people who suppress others' rights. So that means they know the rights of others and they suppress them deliberately. From this aspect, Zalim is the one who diminishes the rights of humanity, does not pay dues to others. When land is dug at a place where it should not have been dug, which essentially means that once we have disfigured the land, and second is that we did not get the right results. The disappearance of light, i.e., where there should be light, there is no light. Zalimeen, the ones who resort to zulm. Lawless people, going beyond limits, usurping others' properties, depriving others of their rights, not paying full dues to others, exploiting the hard work of others, doing injustice to others, not developing their own selves. So not developing their own selves also comes under this root. Those who exceed the limits laid down by Allah are included in this category. We need to focus on the mentality behind all this. And a note here, rights are those which are defined by the Quran. The opposite of zulm is also hasna, that is the balance, the beauty, and the order. Husn is the best proportion and balance. Nur has also appeared as opposite of zulmat. Nur is used in the single form while zulmat is in the plural form, meaning darknesses are numerous. Wherever there is zulm in the world, whatever its form may be, elimination of this zulm and replacing it with a system of adl and ihsan is the aim of the teaching of the Quran. There is a lot more in Lugatul Quran, so it will be instructive to go through it. Few related verses to zulmat. This is just to illustrate the point. Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum minal zulumati ilan nur wal lazina kafaru awliyahum at-taghutu yukhrijunahum minan nuri ila zulumat. Ulaika ashabun nari hum fiha khalidun. What will be the outcome of this system? So if we read the previous verses where Quran says La ikraha fid Deen, then it falls in place. The law of Allah will be guardian and protector, helper and companion of that Jamaat which, having conviction in its truth, will strive to establish it. He will, after bringing them out of the darknesses of the wrong paths, lead them into the light of the right path. So this Jamaat-e-Mu'min should know the differentiation between darknesses and light. That is their previous path that was prior to getting guidance, and then what changes came to their path once they got onto Sirat al-Mustaqim. Contrary to this, those people who deny the truth of this system, their affairs become handed over to the rebellious non-Allah forces of the world who, diverting them from the light of the right path, take them towards the darknesses of the wrong paths. Those darknesses where the produce of humanity becomes a heap of ashes and there remains no way out of this destruction. So that is, their efforts go wasted. So that is what the emphasis of the Quran over here is, that if you want your efforts to bring the best, then you have to follow this path. Next verse is from Surah Al-Azab. Al-Azab. هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وكان بالمؤمنين رحيما. If you keep on doing like this, then the blessings of the laws of Allah and the support and help of His cosmic forces will remain with you. The flowers of appreciation and gratitude will be showered upon you. Its practical outcome will be this, that by taking you out of the darknesses of every kind, He will bring you into radiant light and will keep on nourishing all your potentials. Now, further elaborations on this verse 14:1. First one is, what are the darknesses of human life? All those are darknesses which cause problems in our world individually and collectively. At a fundamental level, these create fear and grief, and as pointed out by the Quran, this leads to the shedding of blood and creates imbalances. An imbalanced society can never free itself from fear and grief. So there is an intrinsic link between the two, and we can very easily witness it in today's world. This means wherever there are problems created by the human intellect, we need to look at the darkness operating behind the decision making. We should then refer to the Quran and see what does Allah state about this. We will witness that there will always be an answer provided about these human failings in the Quran. The Quran will never fail us if we approach it with an open mind looking for an answer. One darkness is that we live life without fully appreciating the existence and functioning of the law of requital. That is the law of mukafat. If we don't know about its functioning, then we are literally living under darkness, because then we are not aware of our own accountability to its fullest extent. As a result, we cannot even extract the best out of our physical life. This life is spent in pursuit of those material successes which cannot alone give us that self which we need in the life of the hereafter. With each passing day, we lose invaluable time from our life and keep reaching closer to our demise with nothing to show for it. Can there be a greater loss than this? The second point is, the second darkness is not being fully cognizant of the existence of fear and grief in the world and its direct and indirect impact on both our individual and collective life. This is an interesting point here which I put down, because if we are a beneficiary of the current wrong system or a non-Quranic system, then we sometimes do not realize that there is a fear and grief around us. Because the depth and the extent of that fear and grief, unless we know that, it becomes very difficult to understand the Quran in its with full context. For example, verse 238 states that once you follow this guidance, then your world will be free of fear and grief. Due to this, we become unwitting victims to these, which then affect our psyche and diminish our ability to employ our latent potentials in order to exhibit their light in both our personal lives and in the world. Fear debilitates our abilities and potential. If we are under constant state of fear, even subconsciously, then we do not really use our choices that freely as we should be without fear. Another darkness is ignorance about the presence of a self within us and its latent potentials, which can only develop when we work to eliminate our darknesses using the light of the permanent values and the divine attributes. So I put down these three salient points, but there is a lot into it, so we can figure it out at our own. Now next is 14.2, everything belongs to Allah. Denial of this leads to kufr. Allah allazi lahu ma fi samawati ma fil ardi wa wailul lil kafirina min azabin shadid. That Allah, in whose devised program whatever is in the highs and the lows of the universe is all busily engaged in its fulfillment. For those people who refuse to follow His defined path, there is severe ruin and destruction. Such is the consequence of following the wrong path. Because understanding what is in the Quran and Allah as a whole with encompassing all attributes is important, because this is what gives us the understanding of the freedom of our self. And Allah then presents Himself as a model for us. We have gone through some of these aspects previously. Now further reflections on this verse. وَهُوَ الَّذِي فِي السَّمَاءِ إِلَٰهٌ وَفِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَٰهٌ وَهُوَ الْحَكِيمُ الْعَلِيمُ. We've gone through this verse previously as well, but I thought over here to refer to it again and put down some thoughts. This admonishing is from that Allah whose law is operating in the outer world and also in the human world itself. Now, where we go wrong is that we don't realize that it is operating in our world as well. If we follow the wrong path, we get the wrong results. That means Allah's laws are being followed. The dominion of the whole of the universe is in His hand, and this whole system and arrangement is functioning based on knowledge and wisdom. We need to be aware of this fact and keep reminding ourselves of it. So this is essentially for us as followers of the Quran, that we should keep reminding ourselves. Otherwise, we become forgetful. We can easily forget it and get carried away by the overwhelming influence of the man-devised system. The system of Deen will ensure that this fact is reiterated at a fundamental level as part of the development of the self. Within the human world, it is operating at a physical level through physical laws under which the human body operates and then meets its physical death. At the level of the human self, it functions through human thinking and decision making. This is where we make choices, and this affects our self and its growth. Here, Eimaan plays an important role and differentiates between the two paths of life, each with different ideologies. Understanding these two aspects of human existence forms part of our knowledge base, and expansion and then application of this knowledge leads to acquiring hikmat. And hikmat, we know, understanding rational behind Allah's laws. And Quran does point to it that wherever it states a command, it also states to us that what benefits will accrue by following it. Becoming Hakim and Alim is a continuous process of expanding the expanse of our consciousness. This helps to bring out our latent potentials which would otherwise remain unexplored. We need these for this life as well as for the life of the hereafter. It's an exciting journey within the Quranic value system that each time we go back to it and over a period of time and through solid deeds, we realize that we have far more within us than we initially realized. And this journey will never end because the same self will go on to the life of the hereafter. Now, next verse is understanding the significance of this life in relation to the life of the hereafter is crucial. The Quran says, "Allazina yastahibbuna al-hayata ad-dunya ala al-akhirati wa yasudduna an sabilillahi wa yabghunaha iwaja ulaika fi dhalalin ba'id." These are the people who, when there is a confrontation between the interests of the physical life, which is the animalistic level, and life at the human level, which includes the hereafter, and hereafter means whatever we do today, tomorrow will become our hereafter. They prefer the interests of the physical life and hinder other people from coming to the right path, because this affects their vested interest and make efforts so that some distortion is created in this straight path. And in this way, they turn Deen from one thing into some other entity. These are those people who are becoming prey to a great delusion. So important points over here are al-hayat ad-dunya al-akhirat. That is, they think that our life here, that is the physical life, will end with death. So as long as we get the benefits of this life, that is our success. And as a consequence of that, they become an obstruction on the path of Allah. Because the path of Allah says that the life will go beyond death. And in order to justify that, then what they do is they also concoct and invent things which misguide others. Now let us look at some further reflection on this verse. This verse has three important interlinked points which require our profound reflection. Firstly, attention is drawn towards the importance of this life on which depends the life of the hereafter. So this life is extremely important for the life or the results of the hereafter, and this includes the hereafter in this life as well, this life and the hereafter. Secondly, it is pointed out that if our choices are wrong, then by virtue of such a wrong outlook based on wrong choices, we become an obstacle to the establishment of the system of Deen. Thirdly, our thinking becomes such that the possibility of acquiring guidance becomes remote and we are totally lost. So the point over here which I'm trying to make is that if I've got X amount of potentials within me, the known and the unknown. If I don't utilize those unknown potential just because I'm lazy or I'm not motivated or I don't want to do any solid deeds, despite having the potential to do, then I am actually causing an obstruction, because Allah has created us with certain potentials, and the Quran is asking us to bring out the best right in this world using His book. And if we fail to do it within the means, of course, available to us, then we are doing zulm to our own selves. So that becomes a sort of zulmat. The verse is essentially for us, that is, those people who have come towards the guidance of the Quran, i.e., those who use the Quranic guidance, and tells us in no uncertain terms to keep our priorities right in this life, and not to allow the needs of the self to become obscured from our thoughts and being. As I said earlier, that we remain in the present all the time, that is now. And we have to keep reminding ourselves so that we don't forget about it, we don't ignore it. We remain very aware of it and self-conscious of it, that we have a higher purpose of life. The physical world and its needs are essential, but always keep in view the limits defined by the permanent values of the Quran and manifest divine attributes through our deeds in our daily life. So it is really a lot of effort at two planes of existence. One is an individual and then the collective. And at an individual, we have to be fully aware of the permanent values, learn them, keep them in our mind, and try to follow them, and also manifest these attributes. We need to recognize those who become an obstruction to the path of Deen and conspire deliberately against it. These people devise ways and means to distort the guidance of the pure Quran and contaminate it with their biases and deliberate fabrications, and as a result are misguided themselves and misguide others as well. So if I misguide someone and I'm misguided myself, then of course at two levels I'm going to suffer, because I have misguided my own self and then misguided others as well. So these things are serious, and we need to remind others as well. Our self-development should be cognizant of this point, and we need to remind ourselves continuously, individually as well as collectively, because that is how our self develops. If I've got an important message of Allah with me, I've understood it, I think I've got Eimaan, and through Amal Saleh I've developed myself, then it is incumbent on me that I should share it with others, and those who want to come together and bring their hearts together, then I should remain united with them. The next point sums up this instruction by stating that these people are far from the true guidance of the Quran, even if they appear to be very successful in this life, which they think will end with their death. Now, next verse is, initially Wahi is sent in the language of the first addressee. Very interesting and important verse. There's an important point here. مَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُمْ فَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And whatever number of messengers we have sent, they used to pass on the message of Haqq in the language of their own people, so that in this way they make the laws of Allah clear to the people. Very important duty. After this, the people were given the choice that whoever wishes can adopt the right path according to the law of Allah, and whoever wishes can continue on the wrong path. The law of Allah is based on supremacy and wisdom. Let us look at some of the points. Some important reflections. I've got 2 slides for this. First one is, this verse has made it clear that being in the Arabic language, the Quran is initially addressed to the people whose language was Arabic. This is a statement of fact. So no point in sending a message to people if it is in a different language than the language of the people to whom it is addressing. The point which needs our attention is that since it is a book of guidance for the whole of mankind for all times to come, then what should be the status of those people whose language is not Arabic? The finality of Nubuwwat and the completion of the Quran as a book of guidance mean no further messenger is required to be sent from the direction of Allah. Now, this is the point for us, and we need to think through it very carefully and keep reminding ourselves. In the initial era, the model of the system of Deen was successfully established, proving to the Mu'mineen that what is given in the Quran has the potential to serve as guidance for the system of Allah to be established for the good of mankind. The Mu'mineen of initial era knew that their best has come out of their own selves, and they have, as a consequence, managed to establish the system. The Jamaat-e-Momineen proved to themselves and to the world that what is in the Quran is complete, preserved, and that mankind has reached that stage where there is no need for another messenger. Human intellect has reached that stage of its development where it can easily figure out the need for the system of Deen. For example, man-devised systems and their problems may force us to reflect. So if we see the problems around us and then we approach the Quran with a view to finding solution, then human intellect is now well developed and it can understand it very quickly. Wherever this Jamaat went in the land, they explained the Quranic guidance and its benefits to those people, i.e. most likely learned their language in order to explain it. So all Muslims of that time, when they spread out, it should be, I assume that they would have learned the language of the lands wherever they went. Because without that, as the Quran says, the message of the Quran is of no use. People need to understand in their own language, and somebody has to explain to them the meanings. The Muslims who came after the initial era decided to abandon the guidance of the Quran and try to introduce fabrications through the Hadith literature throughout history, and this led to their decline as noted in the Quran. Now, this is based on fact. Some important reflections, that is number 2 slide. The pure Quran was gradually abandoned and Muslims went into a severe decline, and as happens in such situations, they became divided into sects and parties. Whenever we leave the Quran, because there is a common value system, if there is no common value system as a criteria, people will be divided. This is the situation as of today. However, there is a revival of intense interest in the Quran due to the growth in rational thinking and reasoning. Among the educated class, it is natural to develop some degree of interest when they find the Quran in their homes and wonder what is contained within the Arabic text, which they are taught to just recite for sawab. So there is now interest developing in many youth as well across the world, where they want to learn what exactly is within the Arabic text. And of course, they have to go to these translations. Non-Muslims have also shown some interest in the Quran in order to study the history of Muslims and also to examine the Quran to evaluate it academically. And I've come across this fact that most non-Muslims are looking at the Quran academically and seeing that what is in the Quran which these Muslims are trying to project, are trying to draw their attention to. However, most have studied the Quran from various translations and also by reading the Hadith literature. This leads to finding contradictions, while the Quran declares that there is not contradiction in its guidance, and it is consistent from beginning to the end if it is approached as per its own guidance. It's worth reading this verse again because Quran over there says that you must reflect in it. Very profound reflection is demanded. When the two are mixed together, then the Quran falls out with their intellectual comprehension and is read merely as a book of religion. The moment we look at the Quran and we think there is a contradiction and we do not make an effort to remove that by referring to or cross-checking from the Quran itself, not going outside it, we will see that Quran will not appeal to us. Even those people who have a good command of the Arabic language do not see the Quran as presenting any outline of a system called Deen. And I have experienced it all along that people who have excellent command of Arabic as well do not understand the system of Deen. They do not see Quran as solving problems of humanity or presenting an alternative system to the man-devised systems. This is because they are not looking at the Quran with a view to finding solutions to human problems. Secondly, most have no understanding of the human self and its latent potentials, which can only be developed through the value system of the Quran. The person who has looked at the Quran as presenting details of the system of Deen is Ghulam Ahmad Parvez, and we know it. He has explained it in detail so that anyone studying it with an open mind can fully grasp the need for this system. Parvez's writings are easily comprehensible for a person whose language is not Arabic, and he has additionally helped by compiling a Lughatul Quran, which explains the words and terms used in the Quran, including those meanings which the Arabs took at the time of the revelation of the Quran. So essentially now we are translating these books for the English world. So we are meeting this instruction of the Quran that It has been revealed in Arabic for those who speak Arabic language, who understand Arabic language. Now we have to present it to people who do not understand Arabic language in their language. So we need to work on this as well, that can we produce it in Hindi and in Chinese, because that's a very significant majority in the world. And second is, if we should be grateful to Allama Pervez, that because he thought that life cannot go on the way it is going. This system is not acceptable, the man-devised system. So for the benefit of those who speak Urdu, he produced all this literature. So it is our now duty, it is incumbent on us, that if we want an alternative system in the world, we have to pass it on in the language of the people to whom we want the Quran to address. So this is the point I feel comes out of this verse. Next verse is, Wahi did help previous nations towards establishing Deen. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مُوسَى بِآيَاتِنَا أَنْ أَخْرِجْ قَوْمَكَ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِكُلِّ صَبَّارٍ شَكُورٍ. In the same way we sent Moses with our code of laws so that he could bring Bani Israel out of the darknesses of death into the light of life, and remind them of those historical events which Quran is calling as the Ayyamillah, that is, those were the days of Allah. I've explained it in slightly more detail subsequently, in which the divine system had achieved supremacy and control. In these narrations, there are great signs for those people who employ fortitude and steadfastness and desire that their efforts bear optimum results. Now, this is an example from the past. And here the Quran presents an illustration from the past for Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, that Bani Israel were brought out of the darknesses in which they lived under the subjugation of Pharaoh. He himself was in Zulmat, and Moses guided them by using the light of Wahi. So for us, there is another illustration, that is the earlier era of Islam. The Quran itself is talking about that earlier era and Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen of the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so we should keep it in mind that the Quran does not leave anything to our imagination. It presents evidence from the past. Implicit in this statement, Akhrij qawmaka minal zulumati ila nur, is the process of this Yatlu alayhim ayatihi wa yuzakkihim wa yuallimuhumul kitaba wal hikmah. If you remember, Rasulullah trained his Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen by bringing them out of darkness into light, and then yuzakkihim, that he helped them develop their self through the education and teaching of the Quran, and then taught them how to apply it, i.e. reciting to them the verses of Wahi. Those who respond are educated in Wahi, given knowledge of the book and significance and application, and then help to develop themselves in order to unite their hearts. Very important, وَتَعْصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, that all dissonances have to be removed. So our effort, since we have come to this path, is to remove our dissonances through our own efforts. It is obvious that a period of time is required before our Jamaat takes shape, to remain united with all differences removed in order to progress on this straight path. Depending upon the issues of the time period required to create and organize a Jamaat will vary. But the Quran presents it as a reality to those who have Eimaan, that all this is within the realm of possibility on an emergent time scale. Now, further reflections on this verse. The next part of the verse sums this up in beautiful words by calling this a period of transition from Zulmat to Nur, and then the establishment of the system of Deen as وَذَكِّرْهُمْ بِأَيَّامِ اللَّهِ, the days which belong to Allah. So Quran is reminding us that these are the days of Allah, not the days of Shaitan. You are living under the days of Shaitan and Iblis as we are living today. And once you bring Deen into it, then you will come into light, Zulmat to light. So we have to think about it very, very carefully and keep reminding. I.e. the era or period during which the system of Deen becomes established and Bani Israel and the later Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen achieve the life-giving benefits of the Islamic system. Here the Quran provides us with guidance that even if the system has not yet become fully established, keep this fact in mind, that this is not something which is impossible to accomplish. It is very much within our reach. So the whole point of giving this example and quoting from the earlier era is that in whatever time we are existing and living, we can do it. Another verse points to the rising of masses against oppression. Yawma yaqumun nasu li rabbil alameen. That if there is no Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, then Quran says through trial and error process, mankind will stand up. And at that time, whoever are the Mu'mineen should ensure and come together and pass the message to these Yawma, these Annas, that there is a better way of living life. This is addressed to mankind in general. It is a sign for us who seek guidance from the Quran. It's worth reading the verses before and after this. By quoting two values here, the Quran has summed it up by stating, Inna fi zalika la ayatil li kulli sabarin shukur. Two values come here, sabr and shukr. That in this are signs for those who can persevere, that is sabr, with firm iman in their cause. Of course, if we have a firm iman and conviction in iman and the change has taken place within us, we can never ever change this path, because the pleasure and satisfaction and freedom for fear of that path can never replace it with anything else, and display their potentials through salih deeds. Their striving is towards one aim, and that is the system of rububiyyat. In this verse, the Quran has also put emphasis on the issue of reminding ourselves all the time not to let our aim disappear from our vision, and also that nothing of the man-devised system should distract us from this. And the Quran says, Yawma la tamliku nafsun li nafsin shay'an wal amru yawma izin lillah. Now, the system of Deen in which matters will be within the book of Allah, and no human being will be subjected to man-devised laws. And for that, of course, we have to understand the chains which other human beings are facing, and we also once had those chains around our minds and our necks. And we wanted total freedom, and Quran has made us understand what freedom is under Allah's system. And this total freedom to make our own choices and to establish that system, it is our responsibility to understand it. And so Quran says, Yawma la tamliku nafsun li nafsin shay'a. No nafs, no human being. And when it quotes nafs, it's not about the body. It is talking to human cognition, human psyche. That even at that level, you will never ever feel enslaved. We should look around and see the evidence of this. There is plenty evidence around us where people are subjugated to this kind of a slavery. Now, last verse for today's presentation, when people abandon the guidance of Wahi, they turn the world into a living hell. Now, this is a famous verse related to Pharaoh. وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ أَنْجَاكُمْ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَسُومُونَكُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ وَيُذَبِّحُونَ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَيَسْتَحْيُونَ نِسَاءَكُمْ وَفِي ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِنْ رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. So from the lips of Hazrat Musa, he is telling his people, and the Quran is directing him to remind them, and of course the Quran is reminding us, that what happened in the past, that if we do not follow this path of rububiyyat of Allah and Allah's system, then what will happen is that the slavery will descend on us, and we can now feel it in the world in which we are living. Remember, when Moses told his people that you should call to mind those favors of Allah, how he extricated you from the tyrannical claws of Pharaoh. Those people used to pursue you in order to bring severe chastisements upon you. Because human beings at a default level themselves are in zulmat, in darknesses. So they also pass on darknesses to others. Firstly, in darkness, you can't see anything. They can't see what exactly they are doing. So at a basic level, those human emotions, misguided intellect is going to do this. The worst of these punitive measures was that they used to humiliate the respectable individuals among your nation, whilst those who were devoid of self-respect and manliness, they were raised to the status of close courtiers. They used to make those kind of choices, and Pharaoh was aware of it, because in order to perpetuate his own tyrannical dictatorship, this is what he wanted. And this is going on in our world as of today. By relieving you from this predicament, your Rabb brought about a great change in the life of your nation, and this was a great favor from him. The Quran helps against pharaohs of all times. Of course, the first stage is to understand the system ourselves, and Quran puts a lot of emphasis and gives us the signs of this man-devised system. It gives the both man-devised system and Allah-devised system. both, and then compares it as well, and then leaves the choice to us. This verse draws our attention to the state of the world around us. Every pharaoh in the world does this to fellow human beings. Here the messenger draws the attention of his people to this fact that the Wahi of Allah has the potential to change your condition, which is created by a system driven by the human intellect alone and is based on every kind of darkness. Another important point to which the Quran draws our attention is that some people rise up when things become worse in the human world. When darkness covers the whole world, some human beings take it upon themselves to rise up against gross injustices and refuse to accept the status quo, even if they themselves are beneficiaries of this corrupt system. Like Julian Assange, he pointed to the wrongs of this system, the exploitation, the war crimes which were committed by the West in Iraq and other places, and see what has happened to him. He was part of the law of requital which is working in the world. We need to bear in mind that rising up against unjust man-devised systems without the guidance of the Quran to assist us will lead to even more chaos and bloodshed. From its ashes, only another man-devised system will emerge. So in order to counter this system, man-devised system, we have to have a system of Deen established somewhere which should have the power to stand up against. Since we do not have power, so no system can stand up against this system. In one short sentence, the Quran has summed up human slavery, where those with potential and courage are not allowed to flourish. And those are the ones who are going to stand up against Pharaoh. And if they cannot stand up against Pharaoh, then who is going to stand up? And those who accept slavery willingly are promoted. This is in order to perpetuate evil regimes across the world by the pharaohs of every era. Allah has directed our attention to this fact that if we allow such a system to flourish and do not stand up against it, then this is what will happen. ذَلِكُمْ بَلَاءٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَظِيمٌ. See, over here as well, once the Quran says that if you do not establish the system of your Rabb, then you will be in a big trial, in a big fitna, in a big trouble in your world, if you do not come together and make an effort. Because if you do not come together and make a Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen and put your efforts together, then you will not be entitled to Allah's help. This is what the verse is drawing our attention to. Great injustice will prevail in the world and Rububiyyat will not even be in sight. The Wahi of Allah can help to bring back the days of Allah if Mu'mineen can emerge using this guidance. And Quran says, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nasi ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. And this is in reference to Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen of earlier era of Islam, that you are the ones who have come out in the land to prevent the wrongs which were happening before you. And the Quran, this is what Quran then helps us to recognize what Ma'ruf is and to recognize what Munkar is, and then fight against it and stand up against Munkar and promote Ma'ruf. And this is only possible by having Eimaan in Allah first. We need to keep on learning with this in mind all the time. And with that, I come to the end of this presentation, and thank you very much for your time.